Hello there, Mr. Sutton here, bringing you the Algebra 2 9-4 homework solutions on experimental design. For these first couple of problems, we're given an experiment, and we're asked to determine whether it's a randomized comparative experiment. If it is, we want to describe the treatment group, and control group, and if not, explain why not, and discuss whether the conclusions would be valid. So here we have a testing for a new insomnia drug. A pharmaceutical company randomly selects and divides 200 adults into two groups. One group receives the drug, one group gets a placebo. After a month, adults who took the drug slept 18% longer, while those who took the placebo experienced no change. All right, so first off, is this a randomized study? So it said that the company randomly selected and divided 200 adults into two groups, so this is definitely randomized. The treatment group is the group that got the sleep drug. That is the treatment itself, is the sleep drug, and then the group is the one that got the drug, and then the control group is the one that got the placebo instead. For this problem, they're telling us that at a high school, students can choose to drink milk or other beverages at lunch. 75 students who chose milk were monitored for 1 year, as were the 75 students who chose other beverages. And at the end of the year, students in the milk group had 25% fewer cavities than students in the other group. So is this a randomized study? Well, it's not, because the students were allowed to choose which beverage they were drinking. So not randomized. And again, it's the self-selection piece of this that causes it to not be randomized. As to whether the results are valid or not, these results may not be valid. And here's a good reason for that. The people who chose milk may be making other choices, for example, flossing, regularly brushing, that help their teeth. So it might be their lifestyles that account for the change and not the milk itself. Or another thing here actually is if they're choosing sugary drinks as their other beverages that they drank at lunchtime, that might also be part of why we've got the cavities versus the fewer cavities. It might not be the milk for the people who are drinking milk so much as just not drinking the sugary drinks. For the next couple problems, they want us to determine whether the following topic should be investigated with an experiment or an observational study, and then describe the design of said experiment or study. So for this one, a farmer wants to know whether a new fertilizer affects the weight of the fruit produced by strawberry plants. Well, this is something that we can test out directly. So this one would actually be good for an experiment. I mean, if you're just trying to do an observational study, you would just have to luck out that somebody else is using this new fertilizer. Probably not going to happen. You're probably going to have to do that yourself. So we need an experiment. And as far as the structure of this, we could randomly select a treatment group of plants to give the fertilizer to, and a control group that doesn't get the fertilizer, and then just compare the weights of the fruits produced at the end of a certain amount of time. For this problem, we want to know whether we should use an experiment or observational study for this situation. So you want to know whether homes that are close to parks or schools have higher property values. So if you wanted to conduct an experiment trying to test this out, you would actually have to build homes close to parks and schools, and also you'd have to build homes that were nowhere near parks and schools. And then, I guess, wait to see what the real estate market thinks about your property values there. That's not very practical, kind of expensive. So this would be better for an observational study where we take a look at the houses that are already built. So specifically for our experiment design, we could randomly select a treatment group of homes that are near the parks and schools and a control group of homes that aren't, and then just compare the property values. And I mean, I say randomly select them. You might want to make sure that you have a similar mix of houses of different sizes, because we know that there are a lot of factors that go into the price of a house. For this problem, a researcher wants to test the effectiveness of reading novels on raising the IQ scores Identify the problem, if there is any, with each of the following two experimental designs, and then we want to describe how we could improve it if it does have problems. So design setup number one, the researcher randomly selects and divides 500 adults into two groups. One group reads novels daily, the other does not. And at the end of a year, each adult's evaluated and they find that neither group had an increase in IQ scores. So are there any issues? Well, let's go through kind of our list of issues that we typically see. The sample size. Is the sample size too small? Yeah, 500 looks like a pretty good sample size. Is it randomly selected? It is. It literally says randomly selects. And the other thing we could look at is whether the environments of the two groups are otherwise similar. They don't really say much about that. But if these are randomly selected, then probably whatever environments they're coming from are going to be pretty similar. So it looks like this is actually no problem. There's a large sample size and similar randomized groups. For this version of the experiment, we have 50 adult volunteers that spend time reading novels every day for a year, and then we have 50 other adults that volunteer to refrain from reading novels for a year. Each adult is evaluated, and they find that the adults who read novels raised their IQ scores by 3 points more than the other group. Are there any issues with this study? Let's look first at sample size. We only had 50 and 50, so although that's not a super small sample size, it definitely leaves room for improvement. And also, this was a self-selected sample in both cases. So the small sample size and the self-selected nature of this kind of sheds some doubt on the findings here. There could definitely be other factors that are going into explaining this change in IQ scores. It could just be chance with a sample size that's relatively small. And it also could be other things like just people who, volunteered to read novels. Maybe they're also doing other things that are helping their IQ scores. So ways to fix this would just be to do the opposite of these two problems. So increase the sample size, and instead of letting people pick their own groups, randomly select individuals for each group.